class. Welcome back to another day of American independence with myself, George Washington. You all did such a wonderful job on your timeline yesterday that I wanted to review it with you. So far our timeline, as we get up to declaring independence from Great Britain, starts with taxes. So you remember that the 13 colonies, which this is a close-up of them, and in our great United States, this is the area we're talking about. These 13 colonies were ruled by the King of Great Britain, who was way across the ocean, right? And the British Parliament. So here we are, that's this really small, and across the ocean is where they're getting ruled. They were being taxed without any representation to say how they would get to use those taxes. They weren't too happy about that, and one way that they showed their displeasure was with the Boston Tea Party, where they dumped all of the tea into the harbor. The British weren't too happy about that, and they sent the redcoats, the British soldiers, to try to start controlling things. Well, Paul Revere did his famous ride where he warned everybody that the British were coming. He told that secret, didn't he? He let the cat out of the bag with his ride, saying, "The British are coming, the British are coming." That led to the British redcoats and the Minutemen, who were the Patriots, kind of meeting up, and somebody, we're not sure exactly who, fired that first shot, which basically led to a war. And that shot was called the shot heard round the world. So good job sequencing that in such a wonderful order. Now, yesterday we learned about a few people that were very influential in helping the colonies declare independence. The first one was, this handsome guy, George Washington. Now, George was influential because he became the leader of the Continental Army, or what we like to call the Commander-in-Chief. That's right, George Washington was the Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. Very, very important job. Now, we also have this fine fellow whose name is Benjamin Franklin. He was influential in declaring independence because he was over there in Great Britain chatting with everybody, trying to work with them. And he got them to reduce some of the taxes, didn't he? But it didn't really make everybody be like, okay, we're fine now, because they still wanted representation. But he was still very influential, and we'll learn more about him as well. And then we can't forget about this guy, Mr. Thomas Jefferson, who was the author or the writer of the Declaration of Independence. Very, very important job. Now, men were not the only ones who were influential in our new nation. This young lady named Betsy Ross was very influential as well. Please listen to my reading to find out how Betsy Ross helped our new nation, the United States of America. This is called The Legend of Betsy Ross. Betsy and John Ross were newlyweds in 1773 when they opened their seamstress shop in the busy port town of Philadelphia. A seamstress is a person who sews with needle and thread to make or repair things made of cloth. John hung a sign outside their house at 239 Arch Street. The needle and spool of thread helped people find their shop. That's Betsy right there. At about the same time that Betsy and John were having a party to celebrate their wedding, patriots in Boston were having their own party, the Boston Tea Party. And you remember what a party that was. The patriots used the sea as a giant teapot, dumping shiploads of tea into it. After that night, the colonies decided to work together to come up with a plan for answering the British demands for taxes. The meeting of representatives from all 13 colonies, the first Continental Congress, was held in Ross's hometown of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. What's that? Oh, you know the name Ross? You have a student named Ross in your class? Well, hello, Ross. Midway between the New England colonies and the Southern colonies, Pennsylvania was an important meeting place for colonists from all over. John and Betsy founded an exciting city in which to live, especially as the Patriots began to gather there. John agreed with the Patriot cause and wanted to break away from Great Britain. One night, Betsy's husband John died suddenly. It was very sad and not yet 3 years since Betsy and John Ross had celebrated their wedding day. After John's death, Betsy decided to run the seamstress business on her own. That means that she was independent. She took great pride in her work and had become well known throughout the colonies for her tiny, even stitches and beautiful cloth. When men gathered in Philadelphia for meetings, they often ordered clothing from Betsy for their families at home. No order was too difficult for her. As war approached, Betsy was asked to make flags for the Pennsylvania Navy. The Continental Army, led by General George Washington, flew one of her flags as well. Now, there is a famous legend about Betsy Ross. Now, I happen to know you guys know what a legend is. And remember, a legend is a story that has been told from generation to generation over a long period of time that may or may not be true. So remember, this is just a legend. But according to this legend, Betsy sat in her shop sewing and enjoying the light of a warm summer evening in June 1776 when she heard a loud rapping at her door. John's uncle, George Ross, stood before her with 2 other men. One of them was General George Washington himself. "Good evening, madame," he began. "We have an important job that needs to be done very quickly. As your husband John was a patriot, and you are known to be the best seamstress in the colonies, we feel that you are the right person for the job." "Do come in," Betsy replied. "I will heat the kettle for tea, and you can explain to me your business." "Thank you kindly, dear Betsy," said George Ross, entering the house. "But I am afraid we do not have time to sit down. As you may have heard, the Continental Congress is meeting here in Philadelphia for a second time. We are on our way to a meeting this very evening. Soon, quite soon, we will formally declare our independence from Britain. We must be ready with a new flag, for we will no longer want to fly the flag of the British King." Betsy stood still, listening to his words and turning to General Washington, who had taken a scrap of paper from his coat pocket. "Mrs. Ross," General Washington said, "this is your chance to show patriotism." Patriotism means love for your country. As your late husband John did. "I have drawn a rough design sketch for the new flag. Please take a look and let me know what you think. We would like for you to sew the first flag of a new nation, 13 colonies united against Great Britain." So this was the sketch from General George Washington. Betsy took the slip of paper from General Washington's hand. On it was a square drawing of 13 stripes and 13 stars. Betsy nodded her head and then looked up into the general's face. Now, why do you think the design had 13 stripes and 13 stars? What did you say? What does it represent? The 13 colonies. Good job, you guys. "Yes," she smiled, "I accept. I will gladly make the flag. Might I offer just one suggestion, sir?" George Washington liked Betsy's suggestion of a 5-pointed star instead of the 6-pointed one he had drawn. Then the 3 visitors turned and left as quickly as they had come. Betsy set to work on the flag the very next day. Taking down a red bolt of cloth for the shelf, she measured and cut 7 strips of equal length and width. Then she did the same thing with a bolt of white cloth, this time cutting 6 strips. She applied her famous even stitches along the length of each strip, first a red and then a white, until 13 stripes of alternating colors joined together to form a large rectangle. Next, Betsy measured and cut a square from a bolt of blue cloth and carefully stitched it into the upper left hand corner of the flag. Days later, when she had completely finished, 13 white stars almost twinkled in a perfect circle against the dark blue background. When Betsy showed George Washington and his fellow representatives the finished flag, they were very pleased. They knew this flag would represent the new country well. This new flag stood as an important symbol to the men who gathered under it on the 4th of July when they voted to approve their letter of independence to King George. 1 year later, in July 1777, the Continental Congress officially adopted Betsy Ross's flag, the Stars and Stripes, as the national flag of the United States of America. Did you like that story? I love that story. So I would like you to please get out your core folder. There's 2 things for you to do today in the core folder. So let's just set this aside. Oopsies. Mine is backwards. If yours is backwards, you need to ignore this because this is tomorrow's work. You're going to pull out 2 things. You're going to pull out the Betsy Ross booklet, which is 2 pages, and you are going to pull out the Betsy Ross flag. So the booklet is just a nice little story of Betsy Ross that you can put together and have to read to a family member to tell them the story of Betsy Ross as well. Let's see how it goes. 1, 2, I think we're gonna cut it. I was gonna fold it, but I think we're gonna cut this one. Like, dun, 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 like this. And then you'll notice that they have numbers. So the first one is the Betsy Ross cover page. And then you'll start with number 2 and just go in order. Number 2, that's the number 3 cut off. Number 4, number 5, number 6 is cut off as well. So let me show you what number 6 is. This one's number 6, and then you'll see number 7 and number 8. We'll stack those, and then you will staple them together if you have a stapler. If you don't, then you can tape them together too. That'll work. Then color this all pretty, something like this. Isn't this beautiful? And then you have a nice little booklet to tell the story of Betsy Ross, and you can color all the pages as well. After you complete your booklet, you can grab the flag and you are going to color your flag just like Betsy Ross created it. It should look something like this. Look how beautiful. Make sure that you put that first stripe as red. The first stripe should be red. On the back, you'll notice that there are some lines, and I would like you to write 1 sentence about something that you learned about the first flag. 1 sentence. Check your cups, use your best handwriting, and 1 sentence that you learned about the flag. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.